Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to Geography Oddities and Interesting Facts Part 6. This is on America, it says in the description, but it's not in the title for some reason. But I've done reactions to all of these, and this is like a series that he's done for the past few years. It's just spread out very far apart. But I've always enjoyed doing these reactions because he's always got these facts and these strange little bits of information on the US that, yeah, it's just always pretty fun to look at and see these differences and like the geography facts and oddities, etc. But we're going to jump into this, hopefully going to enjoy, and let's see what interesting facts and oddities we have here.
Howdy, it's Kyle with another installment of Geographic Oddities and Interesting Facts. This is part 6 in the series that goes back about 8 years ago. I believe this was the first series like this on YouTube that just went over some interesting oddities and facts like this. There have been a bunch of other channels do the same stuff since then, and usually just covering the ones I've covered in the first 5 videos like this. But as you can imagine, with this being part 6 and each one covering about 10 oddities, being about 60 oddities deep, we're getting to some pretty deep cuts here, some more subtle type oddities, so maybe these will be less interesting to where the AI channels won't mine them out for their own. But yeah, this is part 6 of Geographic Oddities
Calling
and
them
Interesting
out.
Facts.
Love it.
I'm going to start off with a town in California right along the Mexican border called Jacumba Hot Springs. It's a small town. There are only about 500 people there, and as the name implies, there are some hot springs in the area. It was one of those places out in the desert that people would go to these hot springs for medicinal or recreational use. There was a big fancy resort there, many celebrities.
What was the medicinal uses? Was there some sort of treatment that it was thought to help with or something? I assume so, but I don't know what.
And rich people had second homes there. And back when the town was big for luxurious second homes, the wealthiest part of town was called Snob Hill. But what makes this town interesting is that it's the only town on the Mexican border where there is no corresponding town on the Mexican side. Every other border city in the US has some type of town or village, if not a big city, on the Mexican side of the border. There are a few buildings on the Mexican side, but it almost looks like most of them are abandoned. So again, it's just this town of Jacumba Hot Springs and no twin town. The fancy hotel closed in 1983 and access was blocked to the big public hot springs there with cement. And I love this sign. I'm not sure if vortex and hot springs are two things you want in the same sentence. Sounds like one of those Final Destination movies. You're in the hot spring, you get sucked in like a whirlpool. So it's quite odd, with approximately 30 border towns along the Mexican border in the US, Jacumba Hot Springs is the only one with no other town on the Mexican side.
That's pretty mad.
For this next interesting fact, I'm going to Slope County in North Dakota. There are only about 650 people in the entire county. It's the least populous county in North Dakota and the 18th least.
650? I don't know how big this county would be in comparison to like the counties in the UK. It's probably like a similar size, like, to be honest. But 650 people, I'm just imagining 650 people living in the county that I'm in now. You know what? Let's get a little look at this. Slope County, North Dakota, size, I guess. So it's, okay, so that's that. Now Norfolk. So 3,158. Okay, so Norfolk's a bit bigger, to be fair, where I'm from. It's one of the bigger counties in the UK. But it's like 3/5 of the size. So you factor in the fact that 650 people live here. That is mental. God damn.
Least populous county in the country. And this was not one of the original counties of North Dakota when it became a state. It became a separate county by popular vote in 1914 by breaking off from the now neighboring county of Billings. But why this is fascinating is that every single year of its existence, Slope County and the largest town in it, Marmarth, have been losing population. This county came into existence in 1914, so the first time on the census is 1920, and the county has lost population every year. The largest town, Marmarth, same thing. I guess technically speaking, the largest town grew a little bit at the very beginning, but yeah, it's been dropping since.
Damn.
And as far as I know, this is the only county in the country that has been losing population every single year of its existence. And this is a very pretty part of North Dakota. It's home to White Butte, the high point of the state. It's right near that really desolate tri-state point with Montana and South Dakota. However, this is not home to Teddy Roosevelt National Park, but this is still a pretty nice area. So yes, Slope County and Marmarth, North Dakota. Take your family of 10 there and change the tides of history by making this place gain population for the first time ever.
Even if this is abandoned, this is a really cool picture. It's not AI, I know it's not, but this is a sort of picture that AI would generate. This just reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz. But like obviously it's abandoned, but then like the scenery is just so like it seems really peaceful.
As kind of a segue from that previous oddity, I'm going to go a couple of states down to Nebraska and talk about just how many counties it has with fewer than 1,000 people. There are 12 counties in Nebraska with a population under 1,000, which is the most in the country. McPherson, Arthur, Blaine, Grant, Loop, Thomas, Banner, and Logan counties all have less than 1,000.
I feel like I've heard of Blaine County many times, but is that just a very common county name in the US? Blaine County just seems like a very US county name.
People. The only other states with counties less than 1,000 people are Texas with 8 of them out of their 254 counties, Montana with 4 of them, and there's 1 each in North and South Dakota, and the one in North Dakota is Slope. But not only does Nebraska have 12 under 1,000, 8 of them are contiguous. And not just that, there are several counties right around there that are just in the 1,000 population range. So I made a real quick map here showing some of these counties. The ones highlighted in red
I wonder why this is such a big county.
Are the ones with less than 1,000 people. The ones with purple are in the 1,000 range, and the ones in green are in the 2,000 range. And the orange one is the biggest county in the state. It has 5,000 people, but it is that big. And as the numbers imply, this is a very desolate part of Nebraska. Most of the ag in the state is to the east and south of here. This is the Sandhills region, some nice subtle beauty, a little cattle grazing, but not much else. I mentioned one of these counties in my video on towns that are dying, soon to be a ghost town, but many of the towns in this region could be included in that video. The next interesting fact I want to talk about regards the American alligator. The American alligator species is known to have a natural range that covers 11 states. If you were to guess the 11 states, you'd probably get 10 of them right. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas. If you were to guess what that last one is, would you guess it's Oklahoma? If you were to guess Oklahoma, you'd be right, because the southeastern corner of the state is part of the natural habitat range of the American alligator.
Bloody hell.
That southeastern corner of the state is along the Red River. You have many sloughs and wetlands there, and there are some oxbow lakes of the Red River. And many of these areas are where you're going to find the alligators. Now, certainly there are nowhere near as many gators.
That's mad, because you would look at this. I mean, I wouldn't assume. Like, you'd sort of see this sort of like lake in the UK. Obviously, it's not the UK. But just by looks, you would see this and you wouldn't think it's very menacing in terms of having crocs or gators, sorry. But it does. That's just so wild to me.
In Oklahoma, as there are in Louisiana, but there are at least a few hundred that call Oklahoma home. It's also worth noting that gators are making their way up the East Coast. Right.
The 2 most alligator-filled rivers in Oklahoma.
Now there's debate with biologists as to whether or not Virginia is part of the natural range, because there have been a few sighted occasionally in the Great Dismal Swamp in southeast Virginia.
See, this is where you'd expect them to be. This is a crazy picture, by the way. That is beautiful, but also creepy as hell.
Even then, it wouldn't be surprising to find gators here, even though it is pretty far north. But despite that, it's harder to wrap your...
Oh my god. Look at these baby gators. They are so cute. What the fuck?
Your head around the fact that there are American alligators in Oklahoma.
What the fuck?
Okay, so now I want to talk about a handful of highways in the country with interesting numbering. The first is US Highway 10. And as the number implies, it's a major east-west route in the more northern part of the country. However, of all of the U.S. highways, this is the only one that is not completely contiguous without taking a ferry. If you were to be driving east along Highway 10, when you got to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, you have to take a ferry to stay on US 10. You go across Lake Michigan, and it ends up in Ludington, Michigan.
And that
that means US
has the same road.
10 goes from a road to a marina, then you cross the lake and it ends up at the marina again and goes on.
What the
There's an
fuck?
official US Highway 10 ship called the SS Badger, and there's even a US Highway 10 sign on the ship.
That's
It's
mad.
a 4-hour ride across a lake, which is much faster than I would have thought. And it takes 2 hours longer to do the drive, plus any possible traffic in the Chicago metro area. So if you're taking a truck east to west, not having to go through Chicago, take the ferry. But US Highway 10 is not the only one in the country where a ferry system is part of the highway. In North Carolina, in the Outer Banks, State Highways 12 and 45 include a ferry. The
What?
Outer Banks are those long, skinny barrier islands out in the ocean, and there is a road that goes down the Outer Banks. And this is State Highway 12 that goes down the Outer Banks, but sometimes it has to cross over an island, but there are no
Those
bridges.
Outer Bank regions must be so fat, like such an interesting place to live because, like, you're so obviously like so you're pretty much at like you are on the like not on the coast. You're an island sort of part of the state, but you look at these pictures during bad weather, hurricane season, or maybe they get hit by a tornado. These have got to get so flooded. Like, look how low these are lying already, and this looks calm and peaceful. Imagine during like a storm, this whole area is gonna get bombarded.
Banks, but sometimes it has to cross over an island, but there are no bridges there, so the state highway becomes a ferry. And Highway 12 actually has two ferry sections, one from Hatteras to Cedar Island and one from Cedar Island to Ocracoke. And once Highway 12 reaches the mainland in North Carolina, it ends right there. But also North Carolina State Highway 45 is a ferry route. This one goes from the town of Swan Quarter to Ocracoke Island, and this is also where the Highway 12 ferry goes. So the intersection of State Highways 12 and 45 is the harbor. Another state that uses ferries as part of its state highway system is Washington. And these are almost all in the Puget Sound area in the kind of Seattle greater metro area. State Highways 304 and 305 are ferries that leave from Seattle, one to Bremerton, one to Bainbridge. And there are several others in the state that use ferries as part of its highway, including Highway 160 to Vashon Island, Highway 104 Kingston Woodway Highway, and Highway 20 Keyston to Port Townsend.
However, so it's not actually as rare as I thought it would be then.
There isn't much uniformity with these routes. Some of these routes end at the marina. Some of them continue on as a state highway as a regular road. And it's also interesting that some of these ferry routes don't have a state highway designation. There are plenty of other ferries that aren't numbered, like ones to Southworth or Ruston. But either way, if you want to stay on some of these state highways to get to the area across the sound, well, you got to get on a boat. Another strange state highway is Michigan State Highway 185 or M185. This is a road that goes around the perimeter of Mackinac Island, which is that island kind of right where the upper and lower peninsula meet. Cars have never been allowed on the island except for emergency vehicles and work trucks.
Oh, damn.
Okay, so then what is Highway 185 then? Well, it's basically just a pedestrian and bike trail.
I need to look at this Mackinac Island. This seems like a really interesting place in America.
Around the island. It goes right through the heart of the little downtown of the village, really cute little historic area. And then you can walk or bike.
This is just so hidden away. I assume to live here it costs a lot of money, right? Because I mean, no one has cars here. Everyone's just cycling. It's like a mini Amsterdam.
Hike on M85 around this island. But it's a more rugged island than you might think, so buy some fuzz before you go to get some energy. There are 500 permanent residents that live on the island. It's mostly a tourist destination in the summer. I'm not really sure why this got the highway designation 185, if it's just meant to be quaint or if there's some other reason for it, but either way, Highway 185 was just a pedestrian and bike trail on Mackinac Island. Now I'm going to go to California that has a couple of funky numbered highways in the Sierra Nevada. I'm talking specifically about the east-west routes 168 and 190. Both of these are non-contiguous highways that start to make their way up the western slope of the Sierra Nevada and then give up. And then they both miraculously return on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada. So Highway 168 comes out of Fresno, goes up the foothills, and it ends at the beautiful Huntington Lake in the Sierra. And then it just dies. But the John Muir Trail starts, and then somehow, some way, it reconvenes at Lake Sabrina. And if you're heading west along Highway 168, you're going up, it ends at the parking lot for the trailhead there. Highway 190 is very similar, heads out of the San Joaquin Valley into the giant Sequoia National Monument. However, it just ends at the little village of Quaking Aspen and turns into forest roads. And check out Google's dedication to Street View. Imagine being the driver and getting this assignment. And then on the east side, it's kind of strange. It ends at Highway 395. It doesn't even go up the slopes of the Eastern Sierra. So yeah, in California, if you want to cross the Sierra on Highways 168 and 190, get out of your car and walk it your damn self. Next, I'm going to Texas and Louisiana and the oldest European settlement in the States. A few months ago, I was doing an online quiz where I had to guess the oldest founded town in each state. So for Texas, I guessed San Antonio, founded by the Spanish. And
what is the oldest one that we see? There's some from 1623. I mean, he's going to say, isn't he?
For Louisiana, I guess New Orleans, founded by the French. However, I was wrong for both because the oldest town in each are Nacogdoches and Natchitoches. Yeah, these towns are each the oldest town in their respective states. I've always been curious about these towns, how they're relatively close to each other and have pretty similar sounding names. Natchitoches, Louisiana is named after the Natchitoches people. However, Nacogdoches, Texas is a Caddo indigenous term. I've always assumed there had to be some kind of connection between these two towns, and there is. Natchitoches, Louisiana was founded by Acadian French in 1714 before either New Orleans or Baton Rouge. Today, the town has a population of about 18,000 people. It's the home to Northwestern State University, and it's a pretty popular town for retirees in the region. Nacogdoches, Texas was founded 2 years later by the Spanish when they erected a mission there. And back in those days, the Spanish and French were fighting over territory trying to gain ground in North America. However, the Spanish gave up on Nacogdoches and moved the main mission to San Antonio in 1772. And then in 1779, Spanish settlers moved back to Nacogdoches but formed a secular town. And today, Nacogdoches has about 32,000 people. It's home to Stephen F. Austin State University, and it's probably the nicest small town in East Texas.
Damn.
So yeah, Natchitoches and Nacogdoches, the oldest town in their respective states, founded 2 years apart from each other, one by the French, one by the Spanish. So that was part 6.
I wonder what the rivalries like the towns are now. Is there still like, I don't know, he said there was a college at one of them, I can't remember which one. I wonder if there's like football rivalries because of that.
6 of oddities and interesting facts, and like I was saying at the beginning.
To be fair, like you said, like the AI channels can find all bits of information, but I didn't know a lot of this information. So, and I really like the ones about the highways that basically go over rivers and not rivers, lakes. I didn't even know that was really that would just be a possibility. I just assumed if it goes over a lake, you're just not going to continue the highway, but some of them do, and yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Why I enjoy your videos so much more than on my channels is because you actually put work into them, and it's apparent when you watch videos. Yeah, and he obviously enjoys this stuff as well, which makes it even better. But yeah, I've always enjoyed his videos. I find his channel really fascinating. Oklahoma's geography is crazy. The vast majority of people didn't realize how diverse the state is geographically. Yeah, I didn't know that they had like crocs like that in the state, but the more you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction, and until next time, subscribe and peace.